Imagine Earth 2.5 billion years ago. No forests, no animals, no humans. Even the air is completely different. The sky isn't blue, and the oceans look alien and hostile. But the most surprising thing is that there is almost no oxygen in the atmosphere. If a human appeared here for just a minute, they wouldn't be able to breathe.
And yet, life already exists. Billions of tiny organisms live peacefully in the oceans, completely unaware that their world is about to change forever. But there's something even stranger. The very thing that keeps every human alive today was once deadly. How is that possible?
Today, oxygen seems like a good thing. We breathe it every second. But for ancient life, the situation was completely different. These organisms evolved in a world where oxygen did not exist. Their cells had no way to handle it. For them, oxygen wasn't a source of life. It was a dangerous chemical. Imagine a new gas suddenly appearing on Earth tomorrow. It spreads rapidly through the atmosphere. Humans have never encountered it before, and nobody knows how to defend against it. That's exactly what oxygen looked like to ancient life. But if there was no oxygen, where did it come from?
The answer was hidden in the ancient oceans. At first glance, these creatures seemed completely insignificant. No teeth, no claws, no brains, just tiny bacteria floating in Earth's warm ancient oceans. Today, scientists call them cyanobacteria. If you had seen them back then, you would never have guessed that they would change the fate of an entire planet. But they had one remarkable ability. They learned how to use the energy of the sun. And that is where the real revolution began. But how could a few tiny bacteria possibly change an entire planet?
The answer is surprisingly simple. They started doing something almost no one had done before, using the energy of the sun. Every day, the sun sent enormous amounts of energy to Earth. Most of it went completely unused, but cyanobacteria found a way to capture it. In a sense, they became the first solar power plants on our planet. Using sunlight, they produced food for themselves. Today, we call this process photosynthesis. But the most important part wasn't the food. Photosynthesis created a byproduct. The bacteria considered it useless. To them, it was simply waste. Yet that waste would soon change the fate of the entire world. That waste was oxygen. But if bacteria started producing oxygen, why didn't Earth change immediately? At first, almost nothing happened. There wasn't enough oxygen. It didn't build up in the atmosphere. In fact, it couldn't even reach it. Every new bit of oxygen disappeared almost immediately. It was as if Earth itself was hiding it. Day after day, year after year, million years after million years, the cyanobacteria kept producing oxygen, yet the world remained almost unchanged. If you had been watching Earth back then, you might have thought nothing important was happening. But sometimes the biggest changes begin unnoticed. The oxygen wasn't disappearing without a trace. It was accumulating somewhere. But where? The answer was hidden in the ancient oceans. Billions of years ago, the oceans were filled with dissolved iron. Today, we think of iron as a solid metal, but back then, enormous amounts of it were floating in the water. And every time bacteria released oxygen, something remarkable happened. The oxygen reacted with the iron. In simple terms, the iron consumed it. Again and again, for millions of years. Imagine trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much water you pour in, it never fills up. That's exactly how young Earth worked. The cyanobacteria kept producing oxygen, and the planet kept absorbing it. It seemed like this would continue forever. The iron in the oceans began to run out.
For the first time, oxygen was left over. There was now too much of it for Earth to absorb, so it started rising into the atmosphere. Slowly at first, almost unnoticed, but the process could no longer be stopped. To us, that sounds like good news. After all, we breathe oxygen. But for most life on Earth at the time, it was the beginning of a nightmare. How could an ordinary gas become a weapon of mass destruction?
Today, oxygen supports life, but it has another side. Oxygen is extremely reactive. It constantly seeks out chemical reactions. That's why metal rusts. That's why fire burns. And that's why our cells need complex systems to protect themselves from its effects. Modern organisms have those defenses. Ancient life did not. These creatures evolved in a world without oxygen. They had never encountered it before, and they were completely unprepared for its arrival. Imagine Earth's atmosphere suddenly filling with an unknown gas tomorrow, a gas that no living thing can defend against. That's exactly what oxygen looked like to most life at the time. As oxygen levels began to rise, billions of organisms found themselves defenseless. They couldn't escape, they couldn't hide, they couldn't adapt fast enough. The planet that had been their home for billions of years suddenly became deadly. The first known mass extinction in Earth's history had begun. But oxygen wasn't finished. It was about to change more than life itself. It was about to change the planet. How can a gas alter the climate of an entire world?
The answer was unexpected. Before oxygen appeared, Earth's atmosphere contained far more methane. Methane is a powerful greenhouse gas. It helped keep the young planet warm. But as oxygen filled the atmosphere, it began destroying methane. Step by step, year by year, million years after million years. Then another dramatic transformation began. The planet started cooling. Temperatures dropped. Ice spread farther and farther. The world was changing once again. If someone had been watching Earth at the time, they might have thought life had lost. But history was preparing its greatest twist. While some organisms were dying, others were learning to use oxygen to their advantage. For most life, oxygen was poison, but a few learned how to turn that poison into an incredible source of energy, and that changed everything. For the first time, life had the opportunity to become more complex, larger, faster, stronger. Because of this, billions of years later, fish would appear, then dinosaurs, then mammals, and finally, humans. A remarkable truth emerged. The catastrophe that almost destroyed life on Earth also opened the door to its future. But Earth's story is only beginning, because another challenge lies ahead. One so extraordinary that nearly the entire planet may have become covered in ice. Could Earth really have turned into a giant snowball?
Right now, you've taken several breaths while watching this video. And every one of those breaths is possible because of tiny bacteria that lived more than 2 billion years ago. They had no grand plan. They weren't trying to change the world. They were simply trying to survive. Yet they changed the history of our planet forever. Every breath you take today is the legacy of one of the greatest catastrophes in Earth's history. But Earth's story doesn't end here, because even greater challenges still lay ahead. And one of them may have turned our planet into a giant frozen world. But that's a story for another time.